Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Glass Cannon at Gen Con 2023. I'm your old pal, Joe O'Brien, with a little side John here as we come in between two of our live play shows from the Gen Con booth to bring you a very exciting interview. I hope you're having a fantastic Gen Con, whether you are here in person, whether you're doing some Gen Con online, or if you're just enjoying our streams throughout the weekend. We appreciate you being here, and we're excited to share some exciting news with you. We will be back to more live gaming from the booth shortly, but we're taking a little break here for some exciting news, hot off the Gen Con presses. For those of you that didn't see it, the company keynote presentation from our good buddies over at Paizo. Well, we got you covered. To talk more about Paizo's biggest announcement of Gen Con 2023, I am joined by Starfinder's managing creative director, Thurston Hillman. Thirsty! Can I call you Thirsty?
Yeah, you can. Everyone does.
Shit,
so
sorry. I got muted.
Oh, wait, I'm muted. So, okay. I see how it is. Can't even get my voice
start.
going. Oh, okay. That's fair.
I'll let you do your open again. Ladies and gentlemen, the managing creative director from Starfinder, Thurston Hillman.
Hello. Hi.
Strong start.
Yeah, I know. Look, I gave all my energy in the first one, but you muted me, so.
I blew it. I'm going to have that producer's neck on it. I'm the producer at the same time, so it's all my fault. What's up, everybody? Thurston is joining us special here for this little in-between interview. We're actually recording this just before Gen Con because at the time of its release, both Thurston and I are so slammed at Gen Con that we couldn't sit down and relax and actually do this interview in the booth. So we're going to get it done here and get out to you some really, really exciting news. I don't want to spoil any of it. I'm going to turn it over to you. Please talk to me about what was announced right at the company keynote at the very start of Gen Con here by Paizo. Take it away, Thurston.
Yeah, no big deal. Just Starfinder Second Edition that we have,
Second Edition.
There it is, right?
That's right, baby. Yeah. Yes.
Bam. We just go right in.
Look at that slick new graphic too. The hotness.
Yeah, that's from one of our folks, Kyle Hunter, has been working on that for a while. Funny enough, we finalized a logo like just a couple of days ago. We were going through and we're like, this is the one. This one's been a bit of strong contender for a while, but yeah, no, we're really excited, and as you can tell, we're kind of getting everything ready for the show and for after the show, and
Well, it is gorgeous. For those of you that caught that amazing detail in there. You see those little action graphics in the middle? It looks like Starfinder Second Edition is going to look a lot like Pathfinder Second Edition. Is that true, Thurston?
It's not only true, and when we say look alike, we should also say 100% compatible.
100% compatible.
100%
really?
compatible, yes.
So I can take my dwarf barbarian from Taldor and just play him in Starfinder if he warped into the future?
Sure can.
Yes! That's pretty phenomenal.
In fact, a playtest we ran last week, just last Thursday, we brought in a gunslinger to see how they do alongside some of the Starfinder classes we're working on.
Oh, that is really, really cool. That's awesome to hear. As part of the announcement, you said that, Starfinder released in 2017. I was at Gen Con in 2017 when it released, and we were all so excited. The book flew off the shelves. It was awesome. In some ways you could say it's been 6 years. It's time for a new edition. And in some other ways you could say it's only been 6 years in the life of a tabletop RPG game that is not that much, that long to redesign. Why now is it the time to start putting out Second Edition?
Well, so a couple of things on that. One is, we're talking about Second Edition, but we're just starting the journey to get there, right? Like, we're announcing it here at Gen Con, and then in 2024, so next year, probably around same time as Gen Con, we're going to, release a playtest rule book like we did with Pathfinder Second Edition. And then we're not going to have the final version of the game for probably another year after that to incorporate the feedback. So, when we're talking about the timing on this, there's still 2 more years before we have another game in the pipe. But as far as why, one of the big reasons is that, like, in a weird way, Paizo's been a victim of its own good design and success, because I swear, if I've heard one thing about Starfinder for the past several years at this point, it's been, hey, when are we getting that 3-action economy tech? It'd be really cool to get that 3-action economy. And so in a lot of ways, like second edition was iterative of first edition Pathfinder and, improved on a lot of things, much like, Starfinder first edition improved on a lot of things from Pathfinder first edition. It was kind of like a stepping stone towards second edition Pathfinder. So we've been in this stage of like all the new tech has been in Pathfinder second edition. So we've constantly had people who are like, oh, we really want to play with that 3-action economy and those new systems. And so this was finally the opportunity. Certainly another reason would be there were some existential threats to our own gaming sphere just a couple of months ago that really had us reevaluate. We were already looking at a second edition of the game, but that sort of changed some of our timetable and made us really reevaluate what we had to look at and what we had to do. And we wanted to kind of get this news out there so people knew what we were doing. So it wasn't like, guess what, everybody? No new book for another 6 months. We're doing stuff like that. That wouldn't have made sense, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you say a lot. That was only a minute or two of talking, but you said a lot in there, and there's a lot to latch onto. You're doing a play test, but you're also it's going to be fully compatible with a game that already exists. So, talk to me about the play test. The base game rules are the same, right? And they're very similar. But what you need to be playtesting, if I'm understanding this correctly, is really the translation of classes and of ancestries and equipment into that existing rule set to make sure that you're not, that it all works when you put it all together.
Absolutely. So classes are a key thing there. One thing the team is very passionate about is that these classes aren't just see Pathfinder class in space. For example, the soldier, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we talk about the field tests we're releasing, the soldier isn't just space fighter. The soldier is a class that specializes in area of effect weapons and tanking, and uses like con as a primary attribute. Those are all things we haven't really touched before. Yeah, you can see our lovely art of Obozaya there, and if you watched our old content, Obozaya used to use like a melee weapon. Well, she's getting on in years, and she's decided a heavy cannon is pretty. But don't worry, she also has her patented Doshko strapped on her back there. But so that's one element of it. Class, we're kind of known for our class playtests, right? Like we want to make sure we get those right because they're kind of core tech of our system. So that's a big part of the playtest. The other thing is, and you hit on it sort of as in a long list of things, is equipment. Equipment in Starfinder is going to be radically different. We're not doing weapon runes in our game, for example. Our game is going to have item level based equipment that's going to sort of scale up as certain items. If you played Starfinder first edition, you know that there's like a whole variety of different types of the same gun. Like your azimuth laser pistol, your Corona laser pistol, and eventually, at different levels you can buy them. We're taking a bit of a streamlined system that almost every weapon in the game is going to have about 7 types, starting at commercial, and then it, goes to tactical and then advanced. And each of those roughly correspond to
illegal.
Yeah. Which is fun for us because it gives us this like standard table, and it lets us design adventures around this, right? So, and this roughly equates to like if you've been playing P2 a lot, like weapon runes. Like, okay, the second level one is where you get your +1 bonus. The fourth level is when the damage die increases, and so on and so forth. But that lets us do some neat things like, we're actually going to introduce like a weird weapon that maybe has an extra trait at this level, things that don't really happen in Pathfinder a lot right now. So our equipment system is going to be really different. But when we're talking about playtesting and why equipment factors in so heavily, is these games are going to be 100% compatible, but the games themselves are going to have very different metas and ecosystems. Like guns are a thing in Starfinder more than they are in Pathfinder. Pathfinder has a lot of assumptions of like, get up close. You're in that like maybe 30 feet of engagement. I
always think of it as like having a pistol is like having a dagger in Pathfinder. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's got at least a pistol, even if you don't really even know how to use it. So like there's so many more guns in Starfinder, and that wildly changes the face of tactical combat.
Absolutely. And that's the sort of stuff we're going to be really looking to test and see how it feels and how it plays. So yeah, when we're talking about a playtest, we want to make sure we get this game right. A lot of people often forget, like Starfinder First Edition didn't have a public playtest. We just were like, bang, here's a book. We had some, internal, obviously, and, a couple volunteer, not volunteer, but, a couple NDA'd folks, but like we didn't do a public one. This one, we're really focusing on a public playtest.
I'm going to ask you more about that in a second. Let me talk about just putting out Starfinder the way that it was without that long public playtesting period that you did with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You mentioned that as part of developing 2E and why it was time, you mentioned that you guys learned a lot of lessons from Starfinder First Edition. Is there any highlights that you can point out for me, things that you took away from First Edition where you say this needs to change?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, we just talked about equipment, and I probably gave several people a little heart attack when I said, we're going to have scaling equipment. Well, one thing we're also very keen on is we want people to make sure that they have their grandma's antique pistol and can hold on to Granny's antique pistol through the whole run of their campaign. So we're putting in rules to make sure that even though we have like this scaling equipment system, that you can still use Granny's gun and give it an occasional tweak with a screwdriver and make it better. So that's the thing you're carrying with you. In Starfinder First Edition, that wasn't really the case. You were kind of constantly like tossing guns out and picking up new guns, and it became this real big barrier to entry in gameplay where you were constantly like, well, what's the best thing at this level? That's one example of it. The other is just looking at sort of the classes and what their rules were. A lot of the classes in Starfinder had a wide breadth of things they could do, right? But they sure don't have a lot of like very tight focus where they do things really, really well like you see in Pathfinder 2nd Edition classes. And so we want to make sure we have some of the breadth in the new game, but that like classes are generally, filling important roles in a party dynamic. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people really like that about Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where, okay, if I'm playing the fighter, these are the tools I'm bringing to the table, and I maybe get a bit of a niche build if I go down the path. We want to capture that, but not spread it out so much that classes don't have a good identity.
Have you been working on translating these classes for a while now? Like, just give us a look behind the scenes. How long has this been going on that you've been preparing for what we're going to talk about next, the field test?
Yeah, so these discussions for the new edition have been, years, obviously. As I mentioned, certain events at the beginning of this year kind of necessitated a little kick. You'll notice that two of the team members on the Starfinder team, Dustin Knight, one of our developers, and Jenny Jarzabski, our senior developer, they have pretty prominent credits in the new Pathfinder remaster, and that's for a reason. We wanted to get them involved with the remaster project so that they'd have that experience to bring back to the team, so we could go into class design and really build these things so remaster compatible as well. But the class design has been going on for months now. We're at a point where 4 of the classes we're in a really good place with. 2 of them we're starting that initial work on. So there's just a lot of effort that's gone into this already. We're on our 6th or 7th internal playtest with them, which may not sound like a lot, but internally is actually a lot, especially in some cases where maybe this thing gets 1 or 2 playtests before it's out the door. You
also have a lot of other things to do. Yeah. You got a lot of deadlines hit on other stuff. So taking the time to playtest is hugely important. And so I'm encouraged to hear that you're making the time for that. And 6 to me sounds like a lot when I know, the kind of deadlines that we have to hit. Trying to fit something new in that isn't published is like not really, doesn't get the highest priority. So I'm glad that you're doing that. Let's talk about the field test. So This is what you're now going to bring people in on this playtest that you're doing internally, essentially. So I just want to, drill down on this for people because this was new to me too. In 1 year, next summer, what's going to release is not Starfinder 2nd Edition, but the Starfinder 2nd Edition playtest, which is what we saw in 2E, a fully printed softcover book that will have not even the base game rules, but will be a huge compendium of ancestries, classes, abilities, feats, equipment, etc., for you to start playing with, because the base rules are just the same as 2E, essentially, the base game rules. So what is this thing that is releasing now at Gen Con, this field test, and how is that different from a play test?
Yeah, so the field test is, we were sitting around. It's actually an Eric Mona special. We were sitting around having meetings and discussions because we knew we wanted to announce, as I said before, like if we don't announce anything at Gen Con, people are going to be like, what's going on with Starfinder? Like, there's no new books. Hashtag dead game. And we were trying to, we wanted to announce something, but announcing, you're going to get something in a year is, it's not the best announcement, right? Mm-hmm. So Eric said, well, why don't we give them a little taste of what we're doing? And we kind of iterated on that idea in our internal meetings. And it's like, well, one of the things we want to do is this open playtest concept. So the field tests are us giving a behind the scenes. They aren't actually really a playtest in a traditional sense. There's no survey that's going along with these. We aren't really soliciting direct feedback on these. In fact, I can tell you, even from the soldier that is our first field test that we're putting out, like, there's changes we already internally know because we've kind of moved beyond when that product was made. But we want to give people a behind the scenes look of what we're doing. Let them try out these tools. Let them muck around with them, post their thoughts, their anecdotes, so we can see it and kind of gauge reactions, right?
And there's a difference. Forums, that's where that's kind
Reddit,
of the place for that. Yeah.
Discords, we're pretty active. The Starfinder team is pretty active in all of those. We're there. We're watching what you're talking about. And so getting that even anecdotal feedback is really good. It's important sometimes.
Let me show people what you're talking about. If you actually take a look at this, it's going to look something like this. Yeah. So this is an internal document, essentially, that you guys have put out and given access to everybody for. I know it's a little hard to see on the screen. I'll bring it up as much as I can. Yeah. But if you take one look at this, and there's a familiarity to it that is very comforting. It looks just like a 2E class page. The way that it's all laid out, it gives you the description of the class, how the proficiencies are going to work. And then we can scroll down through it a little bit and you'll see, it gives you some more info on, obviously the different ways these abilities work. But then you go to here and, it's got the same sort of layout. The first level feats, how, whether they're a single action or a reaction or whatever, what is upcoming for the soldier, how the flow goes. It's just really, really neat to see you guys putting together these documents that really show how compatible it's going to be with 2E. Is there anything here, like on the soldier, for example, that was, I don't know, interesting for you in terms of translation? Something that maybe didn't carry over well from first edition, something that did carry over well. What stands out to you about the soldier?
Well, funny enough, the soldier was the class that I ended up doing the initial write-up of. So it was kind of my brainchild class. We started talking about it internally, and it was like, well, what is the difference between a soldier and a fighter? And where we kind of centered on was guns, 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 and guns. The soldier's thing compared to a fighter is the soldier fires area of effect weapons. So they're like dropping 10-foot area bursts on the battlefield and suppressing people they hit. That's not something you get in Pathfinder as it stands. Yeah. And so we wanted that class to be, a very engaging class that felt like, the tank. I'm gonna pull out old game references, but I probably watched Meet the Heavy from Team Fortress 2 about 100 times while designing this class. You can even see the menacing laughter is literally just I'm firing a chain gun laughing. Yeah. But that's the kind of niches we were going for. We were going for something different that makes it just not space fighter, right? Yeah. And these field tests to sort of build off that point, it's not just a class, right? We put in some of the guns so you can actually play the class how we intended. We put in some creatures like you've got something up on screen here. Yeah, exactly. And we want to keep doing these. We've actually got a pretty good idea of where we're going with Field Test 2, Field Test 3. These are going to be a regular release of just hey, look behind the scenes. This is what we're working on. Here's some tools. It's not the full picture, but it's enough that you're going to get a little taste. The soldier here is only level 1 to 5. Again, we've already determined some stuff we want to change maybe from our internal playtest. These aren't fully baked ideas. They aren't meant to be playtest and give us hardcore fee. These are hey, this is where we're at. Obviously, if you have deep thoughts oh, this is just inherently all wrong, let us know. But, this helps us engage with our community in a way we haven't in the past with some of this internal work.
What's the ballpark on your plans for when will the next playtest release and the next one beyond that? What's sort of the pace of release that you expect?
I think a lot of that is going to depend on how the community reacts. A lot of that is going to be like us sort of gauging, like, what's going to work. I can say tentatively, big asterisks out there, internet, but we're probably looking at like maybe early October for the next one, with some fun things in store for the third one. We might get some more community engagement off that. This all goes back to this open playtest concept. This is like being the most open thing we've done really with the game.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to leave everybody with one amazing piece of art. One more thing we're going to talk about before we get out of here. I mean, come on. You sent over some, sample art of the Solari class. Take a look at this one, everybody. Look at
Solarian.
This.
Yes.
What is this? What is this ancestry?
Yeah, so this is the Patra. Fans of Starfinder are going to recognize them as our feline folk from Vesk 6. Well, now their homeworld is no longer called Vesk 6. It's called Polonus, and it's like the newest pact world. So it's the first pact world outside of the Galarian system, which is interesting. And this is our unnamed Solarian. And the Solarian is a class we're actually just working on internally right now. It's another one I'm kind of starting design on, in fact. And it's a very out there class. We're going with a very solar knight style, a lot of like bouncing back and forth between some states. We're gonna be seeing more, but that particular art piece for our name Solarian, we got some 80s vibes going on there.
Yeah.
I think the actual color art, and this is all done by our internal concept artist Kent Hamilton, who just is amazing. I think it's like, the arm will be gold, the vest is going to be like teal, like this is going to, be straight out of. Yeah. Oh yes. Much summer vibes here.
Nice.
But yeah,
nice.
This is sort of some of the new direction we're going. Like a lot of the other iconics we showed off are people you've seen before, but this is a new one. We kind of swapped it out. Patra are also going to be a new core ancestry. Like there's a lot of little changes that we're doing here.
That's fantastic.
New content. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us briefly and give our audience a look at this exciting stuff. Where do people need to go to try to participate in the field test, to get the documents and to start posting their thoughts and stuff?
Yeah. So the one-stop shop for all the news is going to be starfinderplaytest.com. That's going to be the website that you're just going to want to go to. We're going to be having news, blogs, all sorts of stuff coming out. I think we're even looking at streaming a couple of our own internal games at some point. So just be on the lookout. We're planning to do a lot with that.
Well, that's really exciting. Everybody, yes, very much so here. We're looking forward to the new edition of Starfinder, play testing it, seeing how it all feels. And then, a couple years from now, I'm looking forward to a juicy, big hardcover book with a fully compatible Starfinder 2e, Pathfinder 2e game. I think it's really exciting, and I'm happy for you guys. So looking forward to what comes next. For us, stay tuned. In just a few minutes here, I'm sure we're going to be starting back up with some more actual plays here live from the Gen Con booth. Until next time, take it easy, everybody. We'll see you around. Bye.
Bye.